Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Silvas. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Hey everyone, I am so excited to welcome you to another edition of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. You're in for a treat. I know I've said that before, but goodness, I have such an amazing group, an amazing network. So I'd like to introduce you to Jerome. And we just had a fun conversation about whether or not we should read a bio or not. So full kimono, I'm going to read it. And I told him I'm going to read it because I'm afraid of missing and capturing and conveying his awesomeness. So this is what I'm going to do. So Jerome Myers is an award-winning engineer turned business strategist. Jerome uses his rich experience and innate understanding of human emotions to ensure that your journey from the corporate world to entrepreneurship is a fulfilling one. At the helm of a division of a multibillion-dollar Fortune 550 company, Jerome created a thriving $2 million operation with 175 dedicated team members. Now he employs that expertise to advise leaders across diverse industries, from real estate to healthcare, guiding them to double their revenue, harmony in their work-life integration, and ramp up their charitable contributions. Woo! Jerome, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
We're here. All right, listeners, you're out there. Look, go like, review, and share this episode with somebody else. Podcasting is absolutely hard. Amy's out here doing abundant living because she wants you to have a better life. And I don't know of anybody better to help guide you on that journey. So, Amy, thank you so much for having me on the show. Listeners, it doesn't cost you to do anything to like, subscribe, and share. And I just think it's the greatest thing that you could offer to her to encourage her to keep going. Because again, doing podcasting is expensive, it's hard. And I just believe that we can get better by getting access to these resources. But, you know, people want to be encouraged along the way. So
Thanks for that, Jerome. I appreciate it. Everything is very, very true. Hey, so one thing I let, for the listeners, you and I have worked together for several years. I watched you and kind of fanned out for a few years before we worked together. And what I really love about working with you and what you talk about in the public spaces I've seen you talk is to you, and I'll let you get deeper into this, money isn't everything. It is not the end goal, despite what our culture teaches. And this podcast is really about talking about abundance and what that means and how to get there. And you are living that. You are doing that. You are teaching that. You're coaching that. So Can we start off with you defining what abundance means to you? Because it's different for everybody, right? What does that mean to you?
yeah, abundance. I like to use the word overflow to go with abundance. And so if you think of having a cup and the cup sitting in a saucer, and let's call it a teacup, even though you can have a big teacup, and that cup has so much in it that it runs over and it runs down the side, and then it starts to fill up the saucer, and then it could overflow the saucer and then flow onto the table and then eventually the floor. It's my belief that we're put here to live an abundant life so that we can be of positive impact to other people. Now, some people are looking to scrape, scrim, and hoard all of the resources that they have at their disposal. I do not believe that that is the way that we're supposed to live. I think we've got three resources: time, talent, and treasure. And I think we should have abundance of all of those. I think we should have enough to share. And, being a guy and identifying as a provider, a breadwinner, is not, I don't think my job is done when I can take care of the people who live in the same houses I live in. I think my job is done when I can take care of the community and make impact in that way. And so when we speak of abundance, again, it's tied to overflow with time, talent, and treasure.
Powerful. What I love about that, Jerome, is this isn't just aspirational for you. I've seen you live this. People around you know that this is how you live. And of course, you were born like this, right? You were born with just abundance everywhere. You've never hit struggles, right? This is just something that you started off with, right?
I'm the son of a soldier and a stay-at-home mom, Amy. And so one income household, which my dad wanted to buy my mom's freedom. And he told her that she had one job, and that was to make sure that I became a productive citizen. And for him, that meant that I would go out into the world and have a positive impact. and that, I wouldn't be a criminal, and I wouldn't do this, and I wouldn't do that. And he would jump out of airplanes for extra $200 a month so that we could have some of the nicer things. And that led to him having pretty severe arthritis, forcing him to have an early hip replacement, and seeing him grimace as he sits and stands as a 65-year-old, 66-year-old man now. Those things for me are never lost. And so the thing that goes with abundance for me is always gratitude. And so, yeah, it's great to be an accredited investor. It's great to have money in the bank, or to drive a luxury car, or do travel to foreign countries, or whatever people aspire to do. But if you don't appreciate it, then it's all for nothing. And, that overflow becomes waste. And I watch a lot of people miss the real gift of life. And that's the opportunity to be of service of other people.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's very clear how much your family influenced your mindset. I know they didn't get to, you've done your own work as an adult and been on your own journey, but I've even heard you talk about, where your grandparents came from. And you think about, we can talk about it if you want, or if, leave that up to you. But I just love your story so much, because I feel that many people think that they'll be grateful once they have the thing, or once they've arrived at the journey. That's when the abundance happens. When I think your story, maybe my story, there are other examples of, hey, this can be a journey. This isn't something you just have to have out of nowhere. It can be achieved. It can be worked on. It can be worked on through your mind, through your actions, and all of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's a state of being. There is no gap in between where you are and where you want to be. It's literally being able to experience the feelings and the emotions in the space that you're in now. And so, yeah, I mean, Amy, I'm 3 generations removed from chattel slavery, right? On my paternal side, my great grandfather was a bus driver, right? And he was the first person that was free in South Carolina. And then my grandma left South Carolina, moved to New York, and worked in a bank. And then my dad lived with his grandfather for a while, and then in his teenage years moved to New York and started getting in trouble. So when he graduated high school at 16 or 17, he joined the Marines, and then he did the evacuation from Vietnam, and got really deep into religion because they were shooting at the helicopter, and he was like, if you ever get me out of here, I'll give my life to you. And so there was this magnificent transition that led to him becoming the man that he is, between the Marines, between his faith, and desiring not to be like his father, because he wasn't in the home, right? And so he had the example of his grandfather, and then he decided what he wanted for his family. And that for me is fascinating. And then if I go even further, because I don't think many people know where they come from.
Yeah.
And I think this is a part of abundance, really rooting in.
Yeah.
Before transatlantic, the transition across the Atlantic Ocean in a slave ship from one of my Nigerian ancestors, I trace lineage from there all the way back to being a paternal descendant of Ramses II, which was a pharaoh in Egypt. And so when you know where you come from, and you know where things have happened. And so we've gone from being rulers over a land to being in slavery to being leaders in various different endeavors. Like my dad, was fortunate enough to hold the Bible for him when he became the first Black mayor of the town that he lived in a couple of weeks ago. And so he was the first Black postmaster. Now he's the first then he was the first Black councilman. Now he's the first Black mayor. And I don't usually use the word Black because I don't think it actually matters. But it was Black History Month, and I was witnessing Black history front row. And so for me, that experience is abundance, right?
Yeah.
I just think so many people are walking around looking at the highlight reels of other people, deciding that what is happening in the world isn't fabulous, and then living that out over and over and over again. And I believe that abundance is a result of the programming, right? You bring me in, and I get to talk to your your students and some of
Yeah.
the courses and the masterminds that you do for folks, some of the webinars you do for folks. And we talk about programming and upgrading your programming. And I just think that abundance is a function of the program that you're running. And so if you're not running the abundance program, if you're running a scarcity program, then it's time for you to upgrade that program if you want a different outcome, if you want a different result.
Wow. So much there. So much there. I didn't think it was possible for me to get goosebumps for that long. I didn't even know what happened with your dad a few weeks ago. That's just the way you're able to tell stories and help people understand kind of what's going on in your life and why it matters is so powerful. And I don't know anyone who doesn't want, because those are things that money can't necessarily buy, right?
Ever.
Maybe money will give you the time. Maybe you were stuck in an office, so you had the ability to not ask someone for time off so you could be there for your dad, right? Or maybe the time to research your ancestry all the way back to an incredible pharaoh in Egypt. Holy cow. I thought you were royalty, Jerome. I had a sense. It makes sense. This is all adding up. Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. We'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to silvuscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is silvuscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show. You talk about, Jerome, the programming, which is such a big thing. And I know a little bit about your story, but was there a point where you had to shift your own programming, maybe where you were programmed by society or something like that, and you needed to make a shift in your why? Do you mind walking us through that just to help listeners understand?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were multiple shifts along the way. And what I would say to people is you get to decide every day when you wake up who you're going to be or what you're going to pursue. And I think so many folks are still trying to become the person that they wanted to be when they were 7 or 8. I'll never forget, and it's one of the stories I probably tell too much, but it's one of my favorite stories. When I was 4 or 5, it had to be 4. I was 4, and every day we would play in the front yard, and Thursdays was trash day, and I could hear the trash truck on the main street, and we were the third house on the side street in the cul-de-sac, and I knew Lonnie was hanging off the back of the trash truck. He always was hanging off the back of the trash truck. And when he would get to our house, he would hop down, he would flip the top off of the trash can, it would spin around like a quarter, then fall flat. He'd do a little pirouette, dump the trash in the back of the trash truck, and then spin it back to the curb like a Frisbee. And it never fell over, Amy. Never fell over. It was like art. And he would do what I was waiting for that whole morning. Ever since I knew it was Thursday, I knew saw a trash can outside. I knew it was going to happen. He was going to pull the lever, and the lever would come down, and it would crush the trash, and it would smell awful, but you would see the juices flowing. And I was like, this is the coolest thing for a 4-year-old boy. A big machine making a lot of noise and stinky stuff. It couldn't get any better. And so when Lonnie did that on this particular day, I looked at my mom and said, Mommy, I want to be a trash man. And she looked at me and she said, baby, do you like your Jordache jeans? I was like, do you like your Guess shirts? I was like, yeah. She's like, do you like your Nikes? I said, yeah, Mommy, I like all that stuff. She said, well, when you choose your profession, you probably need to choose one that's going to allow you to live the lifestyle that you want to live. And I don't think that you're going to be able to live the lifestyle you want to live if you are a trash man. She said, you earn money based on the job that you're doing. She said, but you can own the trash company. And I was like, and she was like, think about this. When it's cold outside, Lonnie has to be outside. When it's hot outside, Lonnie has to be outside. And so for me, it was like, oh, this is cool. I want to do this. And then it was like, well, here are all the other things that you need to consider. And because you don't have to worry about those things, you probably aren't thinking about them. So let me rewire the way that you're thinking about it. For me, all my innocence, 4-year-old me, all my innocence was sucked out. It's like, what do you mean? Like, I actually got to make money. And so that didn't come back up until I was talking to Mr. Ayers, my AP physics teacher in high school. I said, hey, Mr. Ayers, like, I don't know what I want to do like, I guess I could go be like somebody who solves math and science problems, or I could work with people problems. He said, well, Jerome, one makes more than the other initially, for sure. And I was like, oh, which one is that? He's like, well, if you go be an engineer, you're going to make more than a psychologist or a counselor or a therapist. It's like, oh, he said, yeah, but I think you could do either one. And then I was like, oh, well, my mom said I got to pick something that is going to pay for the lifestyle I want to live. And so if I have the skill set, then I need to go do that.
Right.
And for me, I was like, okay, well, this is simple. But then I got to engineering school and I realized I didn't want to be an engineer, but I had a scholarship. I actually had 2 scholarships. And so I wasn't going to walk away from somebody paying for a degree. And of course, you know, that's what you're supposed to do. Get a good job. So get a good grade so you can get a good job. And so I was on the path for that. And so I kept going. But I got introduced to the concept of real estate and passive investing and ownership of buildings and the ability to accumulate net worth as a sophomore, because my buddy and I were sitting on the stoop and we were doing math, because that's what engineering students do. And I was paying $395. I had 2 roommates paying $395. And when we multiplied it out across the complex, the guy was making $700,000 a year. We never saw him or talked to him. Like, how can this be possible? I want to do that. I mean, I just want to make $70,000 as an engineer, forget $700,000 as a property owner, but I didn't know who to ask. And so this kind of comes back into the abundance thing, right? So my dad was a soldier. People with multi-million-dollar real estate portfolios making $700,000 a year, were not coming to our cookout. They weren't hanging out at the house, right? There's 2 different stratospheres of wealth at that point.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know who to ask and I didn't have any access. So I continued down the path. And as time progressed, I saw things as a young engineer. I saw people writing checks for cars. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. We always got loans for cars. I saw people buying land outside of the home that they lived in. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. Why are you putting your money there? I saw people maxing out their 401ks before the end of the year. I was like, well, you're saving the money instead of just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Like, what is that? And so I got exposure to what it is. And I was fortunate enough to have a mentor named Gary, who was a division president. And so he gave me the gift of his access to his coach, but he also gave me the gift of seeing what ownership really does, and ownership from the standpoint of being a corporate executive and having so much money. And I'll never forget the day I'm sitting in his office and I'm like, hey man, do you have a maid? He's like, no, Jerome, we don't have a maid. But they had a person come into the house to clean. And so for me, like, those were the same thing.
Yes.
Like 22-year-old me had never seen somebody come to somebody else's house to clean it for them. Right. That was just like baffling for me. Yeah. And so like I'm getting exposed to these things. And so each time people have come into my life, I've been exposed to things that I didn't even know existed. Last year, I flew private a couple of times and I watched people. I held my first black card. One of the guys that I spent some time with last year has a $500,000 watch. And he told the story of how the watch got delivered. And he walks around with it. And if you look at it, it's just a black ceramic watch. You wouldn't think it was all that special until you actually look in it and they explain the complications and this and this and this. I don't know if it actually is worth that much money, but they'll say things like it's got more parts in it than a car, right? And only reason that these things are relevant in this conversation is because I've learned that exposure expands what you understand is possible. And that creates the opportunity for you to truly experience what is available for you to have on this planet and in this life. And for me, the abundance of experiences then allows you to pick where you want to go. Because if you can touch it, if you can see it, it's not so abstract anymore.
Right.
Right. And I just I'm so amazed with the people who feel like they have all the answers and they don't want to be in community with other people who are doing pretty cool things. At the end of the day, you can learn something from everybody that you encounter, even if it's learning what not to do.
Mhm.
And I value that exchange on so many different levels. And I invest heavily in it to get the opportunity to have that exposure because I know how different my life is because I'm still the same 4-year-old who likes to see the trash. Like when the trash truck comes now, I always watch. Tuesdays are my
Stop
favorite
it.
day. I look out the window and now the crazy part, Amy, is Lonnie's not on the back of the truck. Lonnie's in the truck and it's got a claw and it sends the arm and then
Yes.
it dumps it in itself and they shake it a little bit and then they
Yeah.
put it back down. But every Tuesday, if I'm here on trash day, I watch the trash get picked up. It's like nothing's changed
Yeah.
except for me understanding that there's more. And
Right.
if I was Lonnie, and it's a reminder every week, if my mom had said that to me and I actually became Lonnie, if I didn't change with the technology and learn how to drive and get the CDL and all the other stuff, my job would have been replaced by the robotic arm.
Right. Right. Well, I love, Jerome, that you talk about as a part of abundance, thinking about exposure, because you're so right. I mean, I'm not going to bash our schooling system or bash our American culture, but we are really often just given one vision of what life can be like, right? The fact that you can have control over your time and go see your dad, do something incredible, hold the Bible for him. You know, a lot of people think that success just means, oh, I'm making 300, 400, 500K a year, but gosh, I'm also working 100 hours a week and missing out on my kids' events or family things or the freedom to go travel and do hobbies.
In our model, our red pill model,
Yeah.
model for a centered life, level 6 is prosperity, which is another synonym for abundance. And when we think about time, talent, and treasure, there's a Venn diagram that we use. And you want the overlap of using your talent, having time to do the things that you want to do, and having enough treasure that you can fund whatever the activities are. And so that overlap, that special part of the Venn diagram, that central part of the Venn diagram is the one that people are using to find abundance or prosperity, depending on which word you want to use. And if you're out of whack, right? Like if you don't have time, but you're using your talent and you have treasure, you feel overworked, right? You'll end up feeling tired and you have all these symptoms. If you have 2 of the others and you're missing the one, then you'll feel drained. Like the model just breaks it down so well, and it keeps people from pretending to actually be living this life because they hide behind, ooh, I got a bonus that was $100,000. Yeah, but you don't have any time to enjoy it.
Right.
So what does it really mean?
I love that. And you coach people, Jerome, and you do this so successfully for people, you know, that have faced or have gone through an exit. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology. And yeah, a bunch of folks in this space. And I guess as a listener, I'm just thinking from their perspective, what if people feel out of balance? What if people feel like they're not following their heart? They're not truly living abundance, or maybe they've had a mindset shift in terms of what is possible. If you could give a few tips or tricks to folks, I know this could be a longer conversation, but we're looking for a few steps. What would you recommend? What do you recommend to people that you train and coach?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is I don't encourage anybody to be in balance, because if you're in balance, you're not making progress. And I'll illustrate the point. If your weight is balanced on your feet and you want to take a step, I'll wait for you to come hang out with me without coming out of balance to take a step. If the scale is balanced, it reads 0. And I just think so many people are chasing balance. Balance is an illusion when it comes to life. You're out of balance more than you ever will be in balance.
Okay.
That is important because now being out of balance is normal. What I think people should be chasing is being centered. So what are you rooted in? What is actually core for you? How can you get to the center of the Venn diagram on abundance or prosperity? How can you get to a place where you know where North Star is and you're in purpose and on purpose? And when you have those things, all of the other decisions get really easy. They get really easy because you're not trying to consider all of the parameters. This either moves me closer to my goal or it doesn't. This either is a vote for the future for me or it's not. This is going to help me get to the thing that I was exposed to or it won't. And when you can make the decisions and they're that black and white, and I know people love to hang out in the gray, things get really, really simple. You get very efficient and you get rid of a lot of waste. And that, I think, is just the piece. One, understand that being out of balance is normal. It's the normal state. You come to balance for rest. When you're out of rest and you want to make progress, you come back out of balance. Stay centered, though. Know who you are. And so going deep and figuring out who you are and then understanding who you want to become, because people forget that part because it's automatically done in GPS. People don't take inventory of where they are right now, right? If I want to get to your house from North Carolina, I just have to type in the address because my phone knows where I am right now. People don't, when you did MapQuest on the computer, right, you had to put in the address that you were leaving from in MapQuest. Right. We've gotten lazy with the technology. Now the technology knows where you are if you enable location, and then it just directs you to the place that you want to go. And I think that step is so important. People want to skip over where I am right now, but go deep on where you are right now. It's hard to read the jar when you're in it. So having an objective third party read the label on the jar to you, do an assessment of what's going on in the jar is really valuable. And then be very clear about where you want to go. You know, I ended up in a head-on collision with the dump truck back on August 13th, 2005, because I didn't know where I was going. I was looking for a barbershop on a Saturday morning. I just moved to a new town and I decided I wasn't going to use GPS. I was just going to wander around and see where the adventure took me because it couldn't be that difficult. We had 2 stop signs in our town. There were no stoplights and of course, it's going to be very easy to find the barbershop. Well, after driving around for about an hour and a half, I didn't find the barbershop. And a dump truck crossed the center line, hit me head on while I was going 50 or 60 miles per hour. That left me trapped in the car for a while and cut out with the jaws of life, hydraulic jack between my legs to push the dashboard off of my crushed femurs, to put me on a stretcher, to put me in a helicopter, to medevac me to go to my first 14-hour surgery where they put rods and pins in one femur, took me out so that I could rest. And then he came back and did the same thing on the other side, and then some screws in my kneecap and whatever else. ICU for days. Then I get released from the hospital in a wheelchair. Eventually had to learn how to walk again, all this other stuff. But I'm thankful for that experience because I was praying for patience at that time in my life. And that forced me to slow down. I'll never pray for patience. And I encourage nobody to ever pray for patience because it only comes from long suffering. Wow. But I am grateful for the experience because, again, it got my attention. Right. Yeah. It got my attention and it forced me to figure out what I could be grateful for in that moment. And so if you don't get anything else from this episode, remember that gratitude and abundance of gratitude will serve you better than any amount of money that you can ever have. And you'll probably find that the more grateful you get, the more resources will flow to you.
Wow. I don't even know how to respond to all this, Jerome. This is so powerful. Your story is just so meaningful, and your ability to extract meaning from it, teach others what you've learned and implement it in your own life is really just incredible. I hate that we're out of time. But Jerome, how can everyone get a hold of you if they want to get in touch, work with you, all of that great stuff?
Yeah, I think the best place to go is LinkedIn. Amy and I hang out there every day. She's better at it than me, and that's why I took her course. And but yeah, I hang out on LinkedIn every day, and would love to get messages. So I'm Jerome Myers. I'm in Greensboro, and depending on what you're going through, we can either help you or get you connected to the right resource.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Jerome, for being so generous and abundant with your time with us today and helping everyone understand how they can have more abundance in their life. You're awesome. I am so grateful to call you a friend and a coach. Everyone, thank you so much for attending today and listening with us. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Silvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.